Yak. Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist / secular / awesome community. This is episode number 129. I'm recording live on January 28th, 2018. I would like to thank Deborah Smith for getting over any nervousness and scaring the crap out of me regarding the opioid crisis, Lyme disease, and single-payer healthcare last week. Check out episode 128 for more. Secular Yakking showed up for episode 45 exactly 2 years ago, so this will be their second and potentially last appearance on the show. Rob and Amy decided to take their private yakking to the semi-public airwaves of the podcastiverse, and they are plumb tuckered out after 135 shows. So welcome aboard from the West Coast.
Hey, Zach. Oh, happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have Rob, and you really do need to be on YouTube to check out because he's got the finest, latest equipment right there. You can probably explain what that is on your microphone. It's not a piece of cheese, right?
Oh, yeah. So I bought a really cool microphone, but I didn't have a pop filter that fit on the stand and the microphone. So I had some foam near me. I cut it and put it on. So now I have a do-it-yourself pop filter.
The microphones look great, but I'm not so sure about the spongy cheese here.
Well, it keeps me from going all over the place. So,
or those snappy S's.
Yes.
Yeah, the snappiest. So before we get started, of course, we got to begin with a couple of out-of-context quotes. Amy gets to lead. The older I get, the crankier I get. I actually concur with that. And hello, government, get off the Christian belief train because that doesn't go there. That's pretty much your entire show right there.
Yeah, it is.
In that show.
Yeah.
And this is a Rob comment, although it's not really out of context. E pluribus unum is not about making a fondue like a melting pot. It is about making a soup. A tasty soup, right? And also, I want
tasty, diverse soup.
I want to give some love because, you know, one of your last episodes is called Boobs and Satan, so you can't say...
Did you really call it that?
That you were leaving the show for lack of title inspiration.
No. She never knows what I named the show. So.
I didn't know you named it that.
Well, we talked about boobs and Satan on the show.
Oh my God.
And then I found the cool picture of the guy from the Adam Sandler movie. I was like, okay, that's my name for the show. So, little inside there. I usually name the show based on what the coolest image that relates to the show that I find.
See, I like that because a lot of the duo shows I listen to with two people, there's always the one person who just shows up to talk and then leave, and then the editor. It's a beautiful thing. Sadly, I can't. I dream of being that other person one of these days, but that's not the way it goes. Now, this is the worst niche to have in the atheist community, but I am going to say I'm going to try to corner the market on the exit interview because, as I've mentioned before, they are y'all are quitting the show. You're recording your last episode this week, possibly after this episode, possibly not.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk about sort of the show, the kind of how it got started, you know, what it was like. We can do a best of. We don't have any clips to play, sadly, and just, you know, where it's you've left things, and of course what you're going to be doing outside the podcast world, because you have a very active outside podcast, you know, I guess thing going, the E Pluribus Unum, the original motto project, of course.
Yeah.
But so how did this get started, and was it a tough process to get both of you on board to do a show?
Oh, that's the funniest story. So, like you said, I run the original model project, and about 6 months after I started, I was like, you know what? I want to do something cool. I want to do a podcast about the original model project. So I wrote up this entire storyline and a whole bunch of news stories and stuff related to In God We Trust and stuff like that. And then I told Amy what I was doing. And she basically said, no, you're not going to do that because you will fail.
No. You played me like a clip of it.
Oh, yeah.
You played me like some clip of it. I'm like, oh, my God, snooze fest major. So, no, you can't do this. And then that's kind of when you came up with the idea of something entirely different. Well, okay, we kind of collaborated on that.
So
because it was just too. I think I had said something about it would be like just too short-lived. You wouldn't have had enough context to keep it going. But yeah, no.
Yeah. So and this was at the time was a live show. I was doing Blog Talk. Decided to go on Blog Talk Radio, and this was like at 4 p.m. and the show was supposed to go live at like 8. And I'd already scheduled everything and told everybody we're going to have a show, and people were excited to hear it, and so I had to rewrite, rebrand, buy a new website, the whole thing, in 4 hours.
I forgot about that part.
Impressive. So wait, was there an original title there you had?
So we used that a little later. It was called Tomp Talks, TOMP, the original Model Project Talks. So my assistant director and my outreach coordinator for the original Model Project, we did about 6 shows talking about the original Model Project, and it was, we just didn't have the content. So she was right.
I was right.
But we called that show Tomp Talks, and it's available somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it was all Google Hangouts, so it's on YouTube.
It's out there somewhere.
Yeah. Everything's on YouTube. Yeah. Well, that's how I started this show. I was going to talk about podcasts, and then, of course, when the first episode came up, Bobby was like, "Why don't you just interview me?" I'm like, "Oh, there's an idea." Yeah. It turns out other people are more interesting than me, so that's the best part of the show.
Yeah, we kind of came up with the idea when I told him what he was going to do was just not going to happen. We kind of came up with the idea for Secular Yakking because we've been together 24 years now, 25, something like that. And, from the get-go, we used to always drive around and have like these conversations and, just about everything and anything, and it would always get deep and long, and we're like, that would actually make an interesting show, and that's kind of how we came up with the concept of doing Secular Yakking. Basically, instead of yakking with each other like we always have done in the car forever, let everybody else listen in. Why not?
Yeah. There for a little while, I thought about trying to set up some gear in the car, and every time I tried, it just sounded horrible. We're going to call it car yakking, but
kind of a little close to carjacking.
You don't have the Jerry Seinfeld comedians in cars budget. Yeah, every episode you're in a different car. Yeah, we got that. We can swing that. What the Patreon box is for.
I tried.
You were real determined to give that a shot.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to make a rig that would have 2 lapel mics that we wouldn't get as much road noise, and I just couldn't get it to work.
Yeah, and he's real anal about sound quality, so that's part of why we hadn't gotten around to getting it done either. He's too picky.
It was probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Because then I'd have been trying to run the mixer and drive, and that would have been no fun.
I expect you and the Farath crew get along really well.
we do.
Not just because you're fairly close to each other, at least as closer than I am. And the fact that when I was on their show last week, every time I said a sentence, I had to say it like 4 times because it wasn't good enough for them.
Well, we have different recording styles. So I record as live, right? So if we mess up, we mess up. Basically, what you hear on the show is just taking out the silence.
Yeah, we literally, even though we don't do the show live, we only record it in a live way. I mean, literally, all he does is he cuts out his pauses. When he edits, he doesn't
the breathing,
change
the pauses, and
of course, because nobody wants to hear you.
Which is why the foam is here.
So it's all in one take, kind of, mostly.
Yeah, I rarely, unless the dog comes running in and barking, or the kids or something interrupt us. Generally, it's one take.
Yeah, definitely. Because we can't have bad sound quality, so no dogs allowed.
So since you're in Washington State, no special substances or beverages tonight? Because we'd like to introduce the beverages in case, you're...
No, I didn't. We didn't get time to prepare for that. So
no, he literally just walked in the door. So he has H2O.
I have some water, yes.
He's prepared. Well, I'm doing a bourbon barrel-aged Scottish ale kind of taste test. So I have the Drafty Kilt, which is by Monday Night, which is a local brewery, and they just started doing them in cans. So I wanted to try them against the Founder's Backwood Bastard I have. And I'm enjoying the trip.
Sounds yummy.
I don't know, it's an every night kind of style, but having a Scottish background for some reason, it works for me. Because I can't go scotch. That's too much for me. But let's go, away from the show just for a second.
Okay.
How's the knee?
The knee is doing way better. Back on full duty, climbing ladders, getting up and down. It's a little hard to get up and down.
Yeah.
If there's nothing near me, I have to like roll around till I can get up. And, because part of my job requires me to get on, kneel on the floor and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm doing much better. I'm walking normally.
Well, I wouldn't go normal.
Mostly
you
normally.
Still walk with a limp, especially when you've had a long day, I guess.
Yeah. So walking and standing tends to make it swell up a little bit because it still swells a little bit. But for the most part, I'm good.
It's definitely way, way better than it was.
Yeah.
Well, when was the surgery, and did you get support from the community while you're out?
Yeah. So the
surgery was August 30th.
August 30th, and I realized right before the surgery that I was going to be on short-term disability, which sucks because you don't get as much money. But I put out a GoFundMe, and the community really stepped up.
Yes, absolutely.
And they got us through that really hard time.
Yeah, it turned out to be on disability longer than expected, and it's a lot less than your normal paycheck.
Yep.
A whole lot. And when we did the GoFundMe, the help made, I can't express 1,000% difference.
It was almost like every time we started getting low on funds, there was another donation that came in that was just almost right on time.
Yeah,
it was
really
great.
Helped. It was a rough year last year. It really was.
Well, how long did you know that you had to have this done?
Oh,
well, it's kind of odd. He's had this problem since he was 13.
Right, but I didn't have any issues for the past 9 years.
Right. And then all at once he had 2 issues happen, and then that's when the doctor's like, you need to have surgery now. Yeah. So, and unfortunately he had surgery
20 years
20 years before that, which it didn't really do anything. This surgery was probably the most invasive surgery. I think it was the most invasive surgery he said he's done. Yeah. And when he was in physical therapy, not one therapist there had ever heard of such an invasive knee surgery that was performed. Mm-hmm. So it was really difficult.
Yeah. Very frustrating.
So that's it. Is there congratulations involved? Most involved knee surgery.
You win a prize.
Yeah, I win a prize of months and months of PT. Yay.
Lots and lots and lots of pain.
Yeah.
So instead of prayer, you asked people to do stuff, and that worked.
Yeah, I know.
That's only one data point, just one.
Just one.
It means nothing.
But yeah, all the support that we got, it was amazing because that really made the difference of being able to stay in your home or not stay in your home kind of a situation. So it made a world of difference.
Yeah, we got to eat for those few months. It was great.
Surprise, surprise.
So what do you do? Do you open about what you do for a living?
Yeah, I am an electrician at a major software corporation on the West Coast.
Yes.
So you definitely need to walk and stuff for that sort of job.
Yeah, I have to be able to.
Is that required?
Yeah.
Lots and lots and lots of walking.
Yes. Lots of walking.
Yeah, those are usually when he comes home limping because he's had such a long walking day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get back to the show. So how did the show kind of change from the beginning to the end? Was the format kind of consistent all the way through?
For the most part. I mean, we're definitely a news, current events, political, separation church state show. Always have been.
Yeah.
There was a little while around, I don't know, the 70s to around 100 where I had taken on Tom and my daughter Carrie for a little while.
And I had stepped out.
Yeah, Amy kind of needed a break.
Yeah.
And so I brought those two on. So we had a little different dichotomy and a little different feel to the show for probably 4 or 5 months.
Was it that long?
Yeah, it was something like that.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. I mean, the basic setup was still the same.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, I think for the most part, it sounded the same. Our sound got better from the beginning, that's for sure.
Oh my God.
That was so awful.
That first episode sound like we're broadcasting out of a phone booth.
Yeah, I think I just had my earbuds. I was talking to my computer for the first couple episodes. But it's you do like when you're doing a show, you start it. You're not necessarily like, oh, I have to do this perfect show. You're like, I have to do something that gets published that I'm not like 100% embarrassed by.
Yeah.
You balance the embarrassment and the like sound quality and what you can do and how much time you have, and then you just throw it out there. And somehow, yeah, you get into a bit of a rhythm. But did you have guests on your show, or are you just like a news show the whole way through?
We had guests occasionally. I mean, we had early on. I had Jeff Stillwell, who was he was doing a marathon for
that's right,
for humanity, right? And he walked from
here
to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And he gave us weekly updates.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about last year? We started trying to do interviews with other podcasters and stuff like that, but it just didn't fit right with the show. So I kind of stopped doing them. It just didn't roll right.
We tend to do more interviews for other shows versus for our show.
Yeah, I mean, we're news and politics.
And you tend to do more interviews than I do.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a big interviewer.
That's true.
I'm shy.
It's not the niche you were going for.
No.
But I mean, because I don't know if you really had themed shows, but were there like best memories in terms of like episodes, or possibly some stories that you told were just kind of shocking or surprising that you were able to pass on to your audience?
I think for mine, I guess it could be best memory type of, my best thoughts of show. Although I don't remember it because I was high, was my PKU show.
Yeah.
About a metabolic disorder that I have. It's a rare metabolic disorder. And I remember being nervous about the show, but I don't remember how the hell the damn show went because I was high for the whole show.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that one's called PKU High, oddly enough.
Oh, was it? See,
yes.
Didn't know that either. But from what I understand, it went better than I was expecting.
Yes, it did.
So
yeah, and I was also a little inebriated during that, so I'm not sure the editing came out as right as it should have because I was editing while high. Never do that.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with it being legal here now. So,
but yeah, that was a good one. It's one of my favorites. I think one of my favorites was when I interviewed Uzima. It was he's a musical artist from New York, and he came out with the song "Atheist" a couple years ago. And one of the things I love to do is find that obscure thing, and he was like the most obscure person I'd ever interviewed, and it was great to be able to interview him. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said. Sometimes you think like, oh, what's your biggest get, like the biggest person you've had on your show, and then it's like, who's somebody you had on your show who may have not done a podcast before, or now has become known, or somebody who just did one show, somebody doesn't even have a podcast. It's like sometimes those can be more satisfying just because you're bringing somebody on who hasn't been heard a bunch.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard sometimes when you have people been interviewed a bunch, like, okay, what do I ask that has been asked before? Or
right.
Why don't you tell that story you told 20 times before? It's a good story, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. And that may have been why I just didn't do a lot of, I'm not a great interviewer for one. But that may have had something to do with why we just didn't do interviews well. Because I felt like they'd all been done already, and I wanted to bring news and information that people hadn't really heard.
Well, I was just gonna say that was one of our niches, was doing stories that people weren't familiar with. They weren't the big everybody's heard it kind of news. And that was one thing I really liked about the show, was giving news that you're like, oh, wow, I never even knew that, never heard that, those kind of stories.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how the Potter Award was born.
That is true.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the Potter and the Bailey Awards, and what were they there from the start?
Yeah, from the first episode we had a Potter Award.
Yeah, sorry, but Potter was there from the very beginning.
Oh yeah,
Bailey came just a little later.
Potter was even there when it was the original model project. I'd already named it the Potter Award at that point.
And why?
Oh, so we named it Potter Award because
who says you're a bad interviewer? See,
yeah, I know. So back during the Clark County in God We Trust days, there was a county commissioner, and he looked just like Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. Like literally, he had the same smug face, and he was just like, "I've won and you lose," right? And there's the same attitude, and so it was like, "Damn, he looks just like Mr. Potter." And so I had a run in not much later after that with another county commissioner down in Del Norte County. And I'm like, these guys just act like Mr. Potter. And, he's the first Mr. Potter Award winner, was a guy from Del Norte County. And so that's why I named it the Mr. Potter Award.
And that just stuck. And it was amazing how many you can find week after week after week.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you'd run out.
No.
No.
You could do this for like 20 years and probably not run out.
Yeah.
But it'd be really cool if you sent something to the people. You might need a little more.
I debated on
to do that because it'd be nice to have something official, like a little trophy.
Yeah, I debated on that several times. I'm like, that's going to get costly. So, I did, however, tag a few people on Twitter. It's like, hey, you won the prestigious Potter Award, and they didn't care. Ted Cruz got it, and I tagged him. So
just once.
Just once. Well, I have a rule: you can only win it once.
Oh.
Because then it gets old.
Yeah, because then I'm just repeating the same thing you did last time. I'm like, well,
that's right. Because one of your niches or requirements for the Potter Award is they have to have a history, not just one thing that they've done. They've got to have this history, this personality of always being a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually one news story that brings them to my attention. I'm like, he sounds like a Potter. And then I'll go and start researching their history. If they're in Congress, I'll see what vote or what bills they've introduced, or how they treated their constituents and things like that. That takes a bit of research.
Yeah.
But then did you want to kind of balance it out with a Bailey Award?
Yeah, so a few months, I don't know, maybe 6 months in, I thought maybe we should find someone who goes out of their way to be an amazing person.
Nay. This was my idea. This was totally mine because it was so much negative. I'm like, we need a positive. And then you mentioned Bailey being the opposite. I said, that's perfect.
So whenever a story came up and it was someone going, doing things that were just out of the ordinary, and they literally went out of their way to do something nice, especially if they were unknowns, right? Or someone who had generally been kind of neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get a Bailey Award.
Which it was easier finding Potters than Baileys. That's
always
for
was.
Sure.
Always was.
It's sad, but it's true.
But in a recent episode of your show, you had the first ever winner of both awards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to remember. I don't remember his name, but he's a congressman, right?
Something like that.
Let me get this straight because it was a couple episodes ago.
Oh, I remember this. He was doing something that sounded really good, but it kind of had a backstory of it would benefit him in the long run kind of deal. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I don't remember what it was about.
The context.
He was very public about during the government shutdown, right?
He was
refusing his salary for the 3 days that he didn't get paid, which didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. So it was great that he was willing to refuse salary, but he's using it as a political ploy. So that's why he got Bailey Potter.
So it was kind of a weak Bailey, I'm going to go with.
Well, originally, when I wrote it, I was like, hey, this guy's doing something great. But then I started looking and I was like, wait a minute. I think we even did that in the middle of the show. We were talking about it. I was like, wait, this guy's really a Potter.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Was there anything you'd change about the show now that you have nothing you can do about it?
No, not really. I think we did pretty good with the show. The fans were great. I loved conversing with the fans. We get voicemails occasionally. The Twitter followers.
Yep.
Were great. Yeah, I don't think I would change anything.
I would like more science.
More science, okay.
Yeah, my deal was science. I like hearing science news. science stories. That would have been my thing, which we did do, but
Yeah.
I would have liked more of it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it has to be a news science related because that's why we're a news show, which tends to be a little harder to find.
Yeah.
When was the first episode? Like, when did it come out?
I want to say May of 2015 was the first episode. Yeah, and that, like I said, that was on Blog Talk Radio, so it was horrible. And we had an open line, and I think Tom from Secular Radio called.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and we talked for a bit, and because we were struggling to hit that 30 minutes, and he called and was like, "Yay, we're gonna hit 30 minutes."
Well, I remember when I agreed because he had been asking for a long time prior to even doing the first show. He'd been trying to get me to do a podcast with him. That's all he kept talking about. And I kept always saying, there's no way I'm not doing that. And so he never did it. And then that one day when he said, that's it, I'm doing one. And that's when he came up with the other idea that he had. And I said, fine, let's do this. And then I got involved and I'm like, okay, this will definitely just be temporary. And now it's what, 3 years later?
Almost 3 years.
So I don't know how the hell that happened. Wasn't supposed to be that long.
Yeah, I just wanted to check because shows like Inciting Incident have about the same amount of episodes. I started in January of 2015, but clearly I've missed weeks because I'm on, 129. So I was like, wow, you guys are ahead. I was just wondering, when exactly it started for comparison purposes.
Yeah, we took a month off, obviously for the surgery, and we took a month off, I think at the end of 2016. I mean, we took some short vacations.
Not many, but
not many.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so our numbers don't necessarily line up with the exact, like some other shows are weekly and they're every single week. Yeah, we're not.
We're weekly except for those breaks.
Yeah, or power outage.
Or power outage, which you can't control.
But you two are so young. Why do you have to leave us now?
Young.
That's
sure.
a good one.
Yeah, I'm young.
As a matter of fact, his birthday was yesterday.
I am that much.
Wow. So your birthday's like the day after mine, or
yeah. Interesting.
Or 2 days. 26th is mine. So actually today's 29th.
He's the 27th.
I was 27th.
Yeah.
It's Saturday. No, things are changing in our lives. We're making some how do we put it?
Different directions?
Yeah, we're going some different directions. I want to spend a lot more time with the original model project. I was feeling that something's about to break with that, and I want to be 100% with it.
Right. And as far as ending the show, that was kind of on a whim, actually, which I was very surprised when he mentioned it because I figured we had even not, a month ago talked about future episodes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he mentioned, possibly ending and going in these other directions. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I just felt like that I wanted to take the show out on what I felt was a high note. I didn't want to feel like that, maybe a year down the road when I've got 3 listeners, maybe we failed. At least if I go out with, a decent number of listeners, that I don't think that maybe we failed at what we did. So
I agree.
I like that you're in Washington State and you said you're going to go out on a high note. So it's almost promising a certain mental state for your last episode.
That really does, doesn't it?
Oh, maybe. We'll see.
Well, you might do the high thing. I'll do the liquor thing.
I like that. That's a good mix. We'll see which one works better for show quality level.
Yeah.
Now I want to drink. I could go for a drink now. I'm waiting for my meds to wear off, and then I'll get some.
Well, let's talk about the original motto, but first I do occasionally throw in a live read. I just want to say this is so weird because I reached out to Rob about Secular Yacking's final episode coming up. And then it turns out that also No Religion Required's final episode will be this Wednesday. So look out for them. And Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time is when the show is. So get on the live chat and make it, let them go out with a bang as well. Because these shows have been really good for the community and very supportive, just good people. Stay in touch with them, but give them that last hurrah, and of course send all their Patreons to me. That's what we should do. That's the key to the whole thing. It's the only reason why I do this. Just kidding. So of course you started this. See, most people start a show based on a vague idea or just, hey, I'm going to interview people, but you already had the original Motto project going. So what was the idea behind getting that started, and what transferred it from just an idea to something where you were actually reaching out to people and making some difference?
So you got to go way back in history to 2014. Was it 2014? Yeah, 2014. Pierce County, Washington was the first time I'd ever heard of In God We Trust going up in a city council or a county council, right? And I was working with Sam and Becky from Ask an Atheist because they live in Pierce County, and we were trying to oppose as much as possible. So we did a lot of research and figured out who these people were in God We Trust America and their arguments, and they went to the council meetings. I watched them online and live tweeted them, and I got really interested in this. But at the time, I just didn't know what we could do with it. I didn't know how big it was. I thought it was, just this little thing. And then in February 2015, Clark County down in Washington decided they were going to consider In God We Trust. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have to do something bigger for this one. And so we got a hold of some people down in Portland, because that's not too far from Portland, CFI Portland, and we had a rally, nice big rally out in front of the city building, and we got there and we opposed In God We Trust. And of course, Pierce County, they got In God We Trust, and they decided to put E Pluribus Unum up, which was really cool. Clark County, we just completely failed. There was no way they were going to consider anything else. Clark County was 3 commissioners, and 2 were 100% for it, and 1 was like, man, I don't care. So obviously no way to win that one. But that got some ideas rolling in my head. And that's like a 4-hour drive. So the whole way home, I just thought about, what's the best way to combat this? There's got to be a better way than just, going in and talking. So originally I thought, well, the only way you can really change it is to have Congress change it, literally. Got to have a congressional bill to do it. So I started, back then they had the White House petition, whitehouse.gov, I think it was. So I launched that, and that didn't get anything. No one really cared. But then during my invocation down in Olympia, a couple months later, Sam suggested maybe we should fight this on a grassroots level. Maybe there's something better we can do. And on that drive home, the original Model Project was pretty much born. I figured out the concept that it would do, kind of the imagery that I wanted to use. And, by the time I got home, I had the whole idea sketched out in my head and just put it together.
Created a website.
Yeah. I bought the website, put it together, and next week or so, I launched it.
So what are those Google searches like, or Google results that you have?
I will get, depends on the day. It's like yesterday I got 44 alerts, but there's a lot going on for In God We Trust right now. About half of them are just sermons online, right? And then the other half are actual news stories related to In God We Trust and government. So right now we've got 7 states that are trying to put In God We Trust in elementary schools and high schools as congressional mandates. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
City council is starting to bring it back up, like in Wentzville, Missouri. That one just came up, and we got some action going on over there. I'm working with a team in near Wentzville, which is just outside of St. Louis. Pretty good teams coming together over there to oppose it, which is part of how we do it. We find out about them, then we contact local activist and have them do the groundwork. Because I can't go everywhere.
You probably have a good connection with activists around the country then, right?
I would like to think so. I like to think that I could pretty much name a state and I know somebody in it that would be willing to step up. For the most part, I think with the exception of 1 or 2 states.
For me, I think I've noticed it's grown a lot lately. I want to say just basically with the Trump era, it's kind of gone out of hand lately.
Well, what's interesting is after Trump got elected, I expected a huge influx of In God We Trust issues. And what actually happened was for all of 2017 was virtually nothing. I mean, we got a couple here and there, but nothing like 2016. 2016, we had, I would say, a council weekly, and in the last half of 2016, a police department or a sheriff department every single day.
Well, lately, it's just been the last couple of months it started really booming again.
I think everybody got over the shock of the Trump, and they finally decided to start doing stuff.
Yeah, it's a sign there wasn't a plan like, oh, well, in case we win, we'll do this. And it's like, oh, we're not going to win. Oh, crap, we won. Let's do we got to change our mind. I mean, it's pretty, straightforward that no one expected what happened to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone says to you, this is, I don't know what the logical fallacy is exactly, but the whole, well, aren't there more important things to focus on? What would you have as an answer to that?
So yeah, I've had that about 1 billion times.
Yeah, I was like, you might have heard this before, which is why I'm such a great interviewer.
So here's my take on that. In God We Trust is the beginning of all other separation church state infractions, because they can always go back to In God We Trust is our motto. So therefore, we are a Christian nation. And in fact, I have seen that used in bills and in other situations that are definitely unconstitutional, right? And they'll say, well, why can't I do this? In God We Trust is our motto, and it's on our money, and it's on this, and it's on that. Why can't I make this other religious statement by the government? And that's why I think calling it a small thing, okay, yeah, it's kind of small, but it is the building block of everything else.
Yeah, it has big impacts, very big impacts.
Right. Because without it, a lot of those arguments couldn't be made.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's small, and it's definitely big when you're able to have victories. So over the time you've done this, what have been some of your, I guess, biggest wins that like keep you going? Because this can't be easy to do if you're constantly getting negative feedback, right?
Right. I think my favorite win was the one in Del Norte County, which was, oddly enough, our first Potter Award winner.
Where's that?
Del Norte County, California. And it was one of our first big issues that I took on right after the original model project came about. And that had to do with the county commissioner down there, who I'd sent my email and letters and all that stuff to. And he wrote back, and he basically asked who we were and what we were doing. I told him what we did. He wrote back and said, I have no interest in what you're doing. Best of luck to you. Or no luck to you whatsoever, basically. Turns out he's the guy that proposed In God We Trust. And so it obviously passed. In God We Trust passed in that meeting. And then I said, this guy's really a jerk. So I wrote to the local newspaper and sent them the emails that he sent me. Right. And then, so they ran with it, and they made a big stink about it in town. The mayor read the newspaper, and the next month he's like, I didn't even know about these letters until I saw it in the paper. So right now we're going to propose e pluribus unum on to go with In God We Trust. Well, this guy was pissed. I could see it in his face because I was watching it live. Oh, was that guy pissed? That's one of my favorites because I got a little Schadenfreude in there.
So is that sometimes the best thing that can happen is they put in both?
Oh, yeah, because it's rare that they decide not to. I think there was a city in California that decided not to put it in because they didn't want to deal with the controversy and possible legal ramifications. That was their reasoning. It wasn't because they thought it was a bad motto. They just didn't want to deal with the legal.
That kind of sounds like they put up the 10 Commandments, and they're like, all right, we'll put up the Satanist thing, or we'll put up the atheist thing that's much smaller, but then we'll have on both, where we'll be equal, right?
Yeah.
Which is as close to win as you can get sometimes, but at least it puts it out there, and people go, what is this? What is this Latin? We're American. We don't speak Latin, right?
Yeah. And we've had 5 other cities or counties that have put up E Pluribus Unum along with In God We Trust. So we've had wins. They're just few and far between compared to the number of times I've sent emails and talked to police departments and stuff. Yeah, I think, I don't know, anybody else might have quit by now.
Normally. I would just like to see the national monument change to something that's more inclusive.
Well,
I mean, whether it's the Latin phrase or not.
Pie in the sky, like what would it take? What's the actual government action it would take for E Pluribus Unum to become our national motto again? It's really unlikely, of course, but what would it take?
An act of Congress, literally. It's the only way you can change it. Or if it were to ever be deemed a religious phrase by the Supreme Court, then it would still take an act of Congress to change it. It would no longer be the motto, but it would still be there in law. So they'd have to amend the laws to get it off. So still, act of Congress, no matter how you look at it.
Is it a simple majority, or does it have to be like a bigger majority than that?
It's one of those. 60? In order to get a vote, it would still have to go through the 60 votes, to get cloture, and then it's just a simple majority after that. So just like pretty much any other bill. So it's basically never going to happen.
And yet, at the same time, a lot use it as a religious statement.
Yeah.
On one hand, they sit there and say, "Oh no, it's not," and then when they use it, a lot of times they're using it as a religious statement.
Yeah.
And
so
time and time again.
I'm actually building a database of comments, online or otherwise, of comments that literally say this is a religious statement. The words in context mean this to me, or something like that. I don't know how to put that.
I was gonna say
I wrote the thing about it, and now I can't remember what I wrote.
But it was to have proof or evidence later down the road to have something substantial to show.
Yeah, for like an amicus brief, when we actually do get to take this to court, I can say, here's all my research into this issue. It is a religious statement based on all these comments.
Yeah, and it's people's comments. It's not just you making the crap up.
Right.
So other than like local activists, are there like national kind of humanist groups that help you out with this?
FFRF, I'm gonna have to say not a lot. They don't, because it's currently unwinnable in the courts. It goes back to it's that whole, it's not big enough for us to deal with. We have other bigger issues to deal with, which I agree. What they're doing is great, right? So FFRF is protecting people's religious rights, literally, right? And I love what they're doing. AHA does the same thing. American Atheists, same thing. So I would like for them to keep their focus on what they're currently doing, which is why I felt the original model project really needed to happen, because no one was talking about it.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, sometimes you have to step in and help when the bigger groups are obviously taking on other issues.
Right. I think it's not that they're more important issues, but they're more people issues, right? This isn't necessarily no one's having their rights taken away directly because of In God We Trust, right? No one is silencing dissent directly because of In God We Trust. So these other groups are taking care of that issue, and I don't have to deal with it. So they deal with it, and I'll take on this issue because this is my passion.
Yeah, definitely. So how many secular invocations have you done, and do you have I don't know, what is it? Would you say your favorite would be the first one you've done, or do you have any other stories behind those?
So I've given 4, one in Oak Harbor, Washington, one in Marysville, Washington, one in Clark County, Washington, and then the last one was, actually, The third one was in the State House in Olympia. So that one was fun. That one, I think that's my favorite because I got to do it on Jefferson's birthday, and I got to use a Jefferson quote on his birthday. So it's great.
I'm sure you remember that quote, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like 3 years ago. Here's a video somewhere.
We'll include all links. So do you have a dream place where you'd want to do a secular invocation?
Yeah, I want to do one in D.C. at the Capitol building, since no one's ever done a secular invocation there.
So it'll be a while.
Yeah. First, well, I got to get there first. That's a long way.
Have you talked to other people who have struggled? I know, I think it's Justin Scott in Iowa who's had kind of well-known battles to get invocations done, but is that something you have talked to other people about?
Yeah, I've talked with Justin about it a couple times. We had him on the show once, right after his first invocation. And I've talked with David Williamson down in Florida, which we had him on the show while he was doing his invocation issues. It just felt right. Those are really the two that I've had real interactions with. A few other people here and there, but mostly those two. And they seem to have had a lot more trouble than I did. Of course, we're out here on the left coast, so things are a lot easier.
Yeah, I'd say Florida. I'd say if I get to do it in Georgia, maybe, you can resurrect the show just for that special episode. I mean, that's a question. You have this great equipment, especially the cans you got on, the headset. Are you donating this to a needy podcaster? Are you going to hold on to it just in case?
Well, that's just the thing. I've got 2 sets of gear here. Much better than mine.
I was gonna say maybe we should have switched headphones because mine are way better than his.
Maybe we'll get more donations for the original model project because of these. No, so my idea is I'm going to keep the gear up because I plan on doing interviews for the original model project, right? And one thing podcasters love when they interview someone is, can you record your own side? I'm like, yes, I can. So it makes it a lot easier for the podcasters if you have clean audio on your side. So I think that'll be a big selling point for getting me on.
This sounds like a foreign language to me. Like, I talk into a microphone. What's a mixer? Is that something you do when you make a liquor drink? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, his mixer is much smaller than it used to be. It used to take up the whole desk with the last one he had.
No, that was not the mixer. That was the noise gate. That was a different thing.
This is why I don't do this technical
stuff. That was my old mixer and noise gate. When I got the new mixer, it's got a noise gate.
It just looked like a giant keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I upgraded.
This is very technical. So on your Secular Yakking Twitter account, you're really good at retweeting atheist podcasts. So are you going to continue to give love to the shows that mean something to you?
Yeah, I think so. I'll be honest about that. I use a program called If This Then That, and IFTT. You can thank the Wrath crew for introducing me to that. What it does is it automates it for me. I just tell it when this podcast has a new episode, retweet it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That sounds like a very useful thing to have. So you've been involved in this community at least like 4 years. Over this time, have you noticed any changes in atheist podcasts, or is it just a matter of the sheer volume and being difficult to keep up?
I think volume had a lot to do with it. There's so many new podcasts coming out every month.
Yes, there really is.
There for a while, I could keep up with the majority of the podcast, but there came a point it's like I can't keep up with all these podcasts anymore. I have an hour and a half drive, and it was easy 5 days a week a couple years ago to keep up with majority of the podcast. But now, no, there's no way. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, will you miss being able to rant?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I use the rant as a bit of an outlet to get some of my frustration about religion and church and state issues out. So yeah, I'll probably miss that.
So I get to listen to it.
You get to listen to it either way.
Well, I was going to say,
An
I haven't
audience of
listened
one.
to exactly. I never listened to your recorded stuff, but I always heard it before you even recorded it. So
Right.
I guess I already did.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll miss that. There's quite a few things about the show that I'll probably miss. But
I will say it'll be weird not doing it every week, though. We've done it every week for 3 years, and it's kind of going to be weird. Like, hey, we need to go record.
Yeah. Writing the show. I enjoyed the research to write the show. I mean, that was fun.
Yeah, he used to yell at me all the time. You could help and write the show sometime, or chip in. I'm like, I did that once or twice, and both times I had like a ton of articles, and he would cut most of them down. So, nope,
Yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah,
You're on your own.
I know.
I had good stuff.
You did.
I just had too much.
A couple times.
Yeah, I had too much.
Yeah. We get 30 minutes. You hand me 10 articles. I'm like, whoa, slow down.
Would you say overall, because I think I've interviewed 3 shows that have a married couple in it, this is definitely something that's helped your relationship, or has at times hindered it to have these kind of conversations online?
I don't
know.
I don't think it really had any impact because we had these conversations anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's changed anything either way.
As far as Amy's concerned with the way she treats the internet, it's basically us just talking to each other anyway.
That's pretty much how I look at it. It's just us talking, and he just happens to record it.
So yeah, I don't really think it affected us in any way.
So Amy, have you ever listened to an episode of the show, or the once you say it, you're like, hey, I've already heard that?
I made her listen to at least 2.
Did you?
Yeah, at least 2.
Did you?
I don't remember that.
It really stuck in the memory there.
No, that's not true. You did. Okay, I have no idea what the show was, but I do remember you making me to listen to one, but I couldn't stand listening to it.
Yeah.
I don't like to hear myself. The only way I can listen to myself is when he's editing. He listens and fast forward. So I sound like what was
Chipmunks. So
yeah,
you sound like
Chipettes.
Brittany.
I sound like Brittany, and he sounds like Simon.
Yeah, I edited at 1.5 speed.
And that's like literally the only way I can listen to it.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely one way to do it. So what will you each miss least about doing a podcast?
Having to do it every week.
Getting her in here to do it every week.
Yeah, he usually has to come on, we got to do the show. I'm like, oh, do we have to?
Yeah.
Yes. And yet at the same time, once we're in here, it's like we could do this all night. So it's kind of a weird thing. I guess that's kind of like that lazy, you need to exercise, so you got to drag yourself to the gym. But once you're there, you could stay there and just work out all day long. So it's kind of how I see it.
You could.
I totally could. But it was the same way with the show. Once we're in here, it's like, we're good. We can stay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it will be missed. I think it will be missed. And yet at the same time, it'll be nice not to have to at the same time.
I agree.
So it's kind of like a love-hate kind of thing.
Yeah.
And do you have anything to say about how the atheist community seems to be a little bit fractured at the moment and people seem a little bit tense on social media?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this. So one of my positions has always been don't get into the fire when it came to the atheist community being fractured. Yeah, we got some assholes in our community, obviously.
Everybody does.
But and so my point is, if you're an asshole, I'm just not going to promote you. You're not going to get any sort of, I'm not going to talk about you. I'm not going to even acknowledge that you exist. So that's kind of how I deal with that situation. And I'll promote the ones that I feel deserve promotion. Back with the Sargon issue, which is probably one of the worst ones I've seen in the atheist community so far. I just basically, except for the one time I talked about it, I never even mentioned it on the show. So that's my take on it. It's not that I'm ignoring it. I I just don't feel that we need to give them airtime.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, do you have a feeling as to where, I guess, atheist shows are heading in the future with podcasting and all that? Because there's so many shows and there's other options like YouTube and just different ways to access this kind of community.
I think it's going to keep growing, but you're going to see a lot of market share go down. I think is the way that it's. So you're going to have a lot more shows, but a lot less fans for each show
Because it's so spread out.
And then unless you have like the ultimate show or you have this ultimate niche market that no one else does, you're just going to be you're a podcast. I mean, as good as it can be, you're still a podcast among hundreds.
A fish in the sea.
Yeah, basically. Not that I'm saying people shouldn't podcast. If you want to podcast, go out there and podcast, do it. But don't get into it thinking you're going to make money on it. Don't get into it thinking that you're going to have tons of fans, because you're not. I mean, it's just the standard, the statistics. You're just, you may be successful, but you're not going to be a scathing atheist or David Smalley.
Well, they'll come around once in a blue moon,
Yeah.
but for the average, it's not likely.
Yeah, you're not going to get a big, huge contract. And, just understand that if you get into podcasting, do it because you want to do it, not because you want to get rich on it.
Right.
So that's my take on being a podcaster.
Now, this is something I like to ask because last year a lot of people attended ReasonCon, of course, very far away from you, but not a lot of people. So will you be attending any kind of conferences this year?
Probably not. Reason being, I can't afford to go. I never have been able to afford to go. If I'm not part of the team putting on the conference, I've never been to one because I can never afford to go.
Yeah, you always went when you were on the on the team for
putting
it together.
I was always on the leadership committee of some sort to get the conference moving and going and doing something useful. Other than that, I've never been. So I don't know what it's like to just go to a conference.
I know you want to go to one though.
Yeah.
So
eventually.
Maybe in the future, because my kids, my youngest two are they're seniors. My oldest is out of high school, so they'll be getting full-time jobs, and maybe once it's just us, we can start affording to be able to go to some of these things. But
obviously, I can't afford new headphones. I can't afford to go to a conference.
Good point.
Save our money for the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've reached pretty close to the hour, so usually I ask, so is there anything else you want to say? Anything that wasn't brought up that you want to talk about, or?
No, just if you want to keep following what I do, just switch over to the Original Model Project. I mean, I'll be doing that for a long time. Go follow me on the Twitters there. All the fun stuff I did at Secular Yakking, I'll probably bring some of that over to the Original Model Project.
Yeah, I can see that.
Will Secular Yakking continue to exist, like in Twitter, Facebook, or are you just going to stop?
I'm kind of playing around with that. I don't know, because it doesn't take a lot of my time to tweet or just come up with a Facebook, especially if something's interesting or newsworthy. So maybe keep an eye out on Facebook. It won't be as much as it was, but definitely I think there'll be some updates here and there. And the shows will always be an archive. I'm actually working on moving them to my own server, so they'll be an archive forever.
And I really like the image.
Oh, yeah.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
I have a mug.
Yeah.
Awesome. G in the chat room says, please stay. So clearly you need to keep going because of that, right? We changed our mind.
There's sometimes I'm like, do I really want to quit? And I'm like, yeah, I want to quit. So
yeah,
I need to concentrate on the original project. That's gonna. Just the past couple days have taken up so much of my time.
Well, and also on a personal aspect that you want to pursue was that oh my gosh, what is the acronym? What is that thing
the
called?
Society for Creative Anachronism.
Yeah, the whole
medieval reenactment.
Yes,
stuff.
thank you.
I want to start doing some of that.
Cecil from Cog Dis do something like that?
I have no idea.
Where there was a conversation about him being into some whole thing.
Yeah.
There you go. Something to reach out for.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
I think it is too.
Well, I guess having another hobby is not the worst thing in the world, right?
No. Well, I'll be doing some coppersmithing too. So.
Yeah. He kind of, dabbles with coppersmithing a little once in a blue moon when he's got time. But if he does that stuff, he'll probably be doing it a lot more.
And once you quit atheist podcasting, does that mean you have to shave the beard? Because no, beard free.
No.
I
as
tried.
Far as I know.
I like the beard.
I tried, but he grew it back again.
Yeah, I like the beard, so I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. If you want to support this show, because I'm no quitters like these two, be like Hugh Teote and Jeannie and support the show, patreon.com/Zachrilege, ZACHRILEGE. Not as easy to spell as your show, but that's okay. Follow me on Twitter @Zachrilege, like the Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook, and send all hate mail, love mail, any guest ideas to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. So we're losing secular yakking and no religion required at the end of this month. Let's recall the greatness that these shows represented. Bask in the glory that I outlasted these two shows. In your face. Just kidding. Wait. I'm probably not supposed to say the evil plan out loud. They have given us hundreds of hours of quality content and amazing out-of-context quotes, and the shows will be missed, but the brain trust behind these shows will exist, so please stay in touch. Thank you for everybody who listens, watches, and all that, and have a great week. You're loved. Good night. And yak.